Hello and happiest days to you folks. I hope you guys are having an amazing day today. Today we're taking a look at a 24-page short story. It's called in this collection of Haggopian and Other Stories by Brian Lumley of Cthulhu Mythos, which I'll link you to in the comments below for you folks. And so this is his short story. It's called Aunt Hester. It's from the Satyr's Head from Corgi from 75, and that sort of a thing too. Read it last night. It was very fast, and while I was going to church. And that sort of a thing too. It's easy enough to get it in and back out again. It probably took me like maybe 40 minutes for me to knock it out for you folks. This collection is by Solaris. So I'll link it in the comments below. We're knocking out this stuff for the Cthulhu Mythos stuff for October for you folks. And so Brian Lumley is a very, very famous horror author. I've read a couple of his short stories and that sort of thing too, but he's heavily prolific, has tons of novels. He started novels in the early 80s after doing some decades of short stories, particularly in the Cthulhu Mythos, which is his collecting. And the Cthulhu Mythos is a shared horror, typically cosmic horror, although there are some exceptions, like some sword and sorcery stuff too. But then it's a shared horror universe that was created by H.P. Lovecraft in the pulp era, and he would basically keep some of those things together, like the Necronomicon or the Cthulhu and that sort of thing, to places too, like Miskatonic, and then also things like that too. And then he would actually bring in other authors from that era too, like Clark Ashton Smith's Sathagua, and then bring other people to bring them into his stuff, and vice versa. They would bring his stuff in too, and that created that first generation of that Cthulhu Mythos. I encountered Lovecraft when I was in college. Read a 3-volume collection of his stuff, loved it lots, including one of his Cthulhu Mythos stuff. He became my favorite author, and I really it was in the mid-90s. And so I read a ton of Cthulhu Mythos collections outside of things that he did, like Cthulhu 2000 and stuff like that too, right? And so I did a bunch of that stuff. I probably read I've probably to this day, I probably read at least 1,000 Cthulhu Mythos short stories, lots, and that sort of a thing too, right? And so I think and so sort of Brian Lumley too. He read a lot of that stuff too, and then he started writing short stories to August Derleth during the second and third generation. And so after Lovecraft dies in 37, and then after that happens, after the first generation ends, August Derleth will take it over, and this was submitted then. So basically, what's happening here in Aunt Hester is that our protagonist is a smaller, younger guy. He's a boy, that sort of a thing too, and he has been told that he grew up with his aunt and telling him stories, and he really liked her, and that sort of a thing too. And then he was told by his family that he could talk to her anymore, that he'd gotten to a point in his age that he couldn't talk to her anymore, and that sort of thing too. And so he wasn't able to for like 10 years. And then he actually gets his parents to secretly agree to him to host with some friends that were in the area that they used to live at, in order for him to go see her. That sort of a thing too. So he will go see Aunt Hester against their wishes, and he'll find out all the stories. So she is a spiritualist and somebody who has all the Cthulhu Mythos things like the Necronomicon and stuff like that too. So she's going to tell him all about her history as she's somebody who tells fortunes and that sort of a thing too, like 4 people that come in, clients, and she's got a new set of friends. She was born as a twin, and that sort of a thing too. She's going to start telling her stories, and we're going to find out more and more of her story, that sort of a thing too. Now what happens here at the end, I definitely like. I think it's great stuff. I think it's definitely a creepy Cthulhu Mythos style thing. It's at 24 pages. It's not that long, and it won't take that much of your time, right? For you to knock it out like 40 minutes of my time too, and that sort of a thing too. I love the concepts and that sort of a thing too, and what happens with her and her twin too, that sort of thing too, and how that actually gets him and his family to cut her out of his life. That relationship that she turns into a dark career, that sort of thing too. I definitely enjoy it, and her fall. And so there you go. That's Aunt Hester for you folks. I hope you'll enjoy it quite a bit for you folks. Now I'm probably going to be giving this like maybe an 8.5. You can definitely tell that Brian Lumley's a little more advanced as a writer here later on in his career, and that sort of thing too. It doesn't add anything massive to the Cthulhu Mythos. It just uses elements that already existed. He's not, which I think is a good opportunity to, and that sort of a thing too. Right? He just wants to tell his own story rather than a lot of characters at this time when they were telling stories that were set in Cthulhu Mythos to add things or to answer what is this right thing that was talked about. So I like that he's telling his own story and that sort of thing too. Not that bad either. So it's an 8.5 for those reasons for you folks. And there you are. That is Aunt Hester by Brian Lumley. Again, links below. So what did you think about it? I'm happy to sort of talk with you further about that in the comments below, whatever your thoughts are. Right. As a reminder, I'm not a trained literature critic. I don't read literature for a living. I didn't even take English as a major in college, right? None of that stuff, right? So I'm just a fan like you are. So your opinion really is as valid as mine is, because I'm not coming to you from a place of expertise, right? None of that stuff. And so let me know what all of your thoughts are. Love it lots. And then after, I do 3 of these reviews of these older things a week that you read. And this fantasy, science fiction, and horror stuff too. I also do older video game reviews on Wednesday, older serials on Saturday of the forgotten era, like this era when Tolkien was alive. Lovecraft too. That sort of a thing too. And then also, I do on Monday older tabletop RPGs and war games, and so in addition to starting things too. So if those 7 things a week of these older things sound like your cup of tea, or you just want to follow along with this Brian Lumley or other horror things too, and those reviews, then great. Go ahead and welcome to the channel. Please do all the YouTube stuff too, like hit that like button, share button, the bell icon to be notified of those videos. If you're feeling frisky, all that stuff too, right? All up and down the block for you folks. And there you are. And then there you go for you folks. As you can tell from those 7 older reviews, it's the passion, right, of this channel. It's even where its name comes from, and that's the worst thing about the new books. To quote by a French philosopher, Jacques Joubert, who says that the worst thing about them was that they kept us from reading the old stuff, right? And there's definitely some older stuff we might have forgotten about in a passion for the new. Not that it's bad, you get it. And there we are for you folks, and I want to thank you so very, very much for just taking some time out of your day and investing it, right? And watching my video, because we all have so many things that are happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions too, right? So in fact, you spent this time with me, that's incredibly humbling, and I appreciate that so very, very much. So thanks again, and have an amazing day.